Hello everyone, good afternoon. It's afternoon here in the UK. It's Saturday and I was going to create a card and I thought, do you know, I think I'll go in my journal. So you can see my journal's well used. I'm using the Pink Pig journals that I have online on my shop. So I thought we'd create a project in there. So I'm just going to find a blank page where it might fit. I love sort of looking through the journal. I've got so many pages now that I can look through for inspiration. Maybe it could go there because there's some browns on there. I love it. Or we could just create a completely new page. Or not. Let's put it on the other side of this. And you can see the page is marked, etc. It doesn't matter. I'll just go for it. Now at 5 o'clock this evening, Tim Holtz is going live with the next colours of the Distress Oxides. He's actually put an announcement out to say he's going live. So once he's gone live, the new colours of the Mini Distress will be available on my website for pre-order. They're actually already on the way. So they emailed me today and actually asked for some details because they're actually on the way. So it shouldn't be too much longer, but I've put 7 days for pre-order. So to celebrate, I thought I'd use them again. I used them in my previous 2 videos. And I thought I would use the acorn. And I'll tell you why I'm using the acorn, because my lovely friend Irene, she bought me these. Look at them. These are real acorns. Look at that. How wonderful is that? And I'm thinking even that next year could be inspiration for another stamp, couldn't it? Isn't that lovely? Just look how wonderful that is. That is just fantastic. I absolutely love it. Just look how sweet that is. Just love them. So, and there's even bigger ones here. There's a bigger one here as well. Don't they look cool? I know, it doesn't take much, does it, to amuse me. So I thought I would use the acorn in celebration. And of course, as per normal, I've pulled the stencil out and I always need something extra. It's a good job I've got them right by me here. So let's grab the actual cutout piece, which now is going to take me forever to find. Is it in there? There it is. We've got the cutout as well. So it's lovely because we have the cutout as well. We also have TE44 where we've got smaller acorns also. So I think I'm going to have mine sort of lying down like this. And I'm just going to do something really simple. Oh, I've already got my low-tack tape out. Oh well. We'll use the last bit on here, but you can, no, we can't find the end and I'm not faffing forever, forget that. So we'll just add, now do I want it like that or sort of like that? There we go. Let's secure that on the page and stop faffing. So I'm just securing that on my page. If you want to, you can add a piece of copier paper underneath your page underneath so that you don't get anything on there should you wish. So you can add that copier paper and it means that the underneath pages won't get the ink. I don't tend to bother, I just go forward. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but there you go. So let's grab a little round brush and we'll grab some water as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my little Distress Oxides. And it means I can have all these colours on my desk and it just doesn't take up so much space. And then I'm going to grab a blending brush, and I should have these all colour coordinated so it's easier. And voila, it's easier. So I can use one of my smaller brushes, my blending brushes. Now I've got those, and let's just add some colour. So I'm going to take that vintage photo, and I'm just going to just sort of make the impression on that card, just so that we've got it on there. So this is laying down the colour and just giving that image just on the design. And then what I'm going to do is, just so that I've got some darker areas, I'm going to just add the ink just to my stencil, and then I can just drag that just so it's a little darker just onto my project. I've also then got some ink on the stencil if I want to create another impression, should I wish. I'm not going to on this occasion. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to take walnut stain. So let's grab a little bit of walnut stain and let's get some blending done. So I'm going to take that darker brown, and I'm going to just bring in the darker brown around those edges. And you can see that I can carry on blending like I'm doing. Not hard work in the slightest. I'm just layering the colour. So let's just layer that colour. So I'm coming in with the walnut stain that I have to keep lifting up because I keep forgetting the colour. And I'm just going to keep adding that till it's nice and dark. There we go. Just so that we've got that lovely and dark. Do I want to do anything else before? No, because we're going to paint or colour with our paintbrush. So you've then got the stencil then that you can quite easily just add to another card. So you could spritz that and we could add that to another card. So you can see here I've got the lovely acorn just there, just as part of my scene. So what I'm going to do now is just create so that it looks a bit more like it belongs, etc. So I'm using the Pink Pig journal, so that means that this will move. So I can automatically create a little bit of shading instantly just at the base there. So I can instantly create that sort of shade just with a little bit of water. I'm going to pick up this now, and then I'm just going to take my kitchen roll that I didn't get out prior, and on that I've just added water, and I've just sort of bleached out a little bit of that area just so that's a little bit lighter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my walnut stain, and I'm going to pick up that colour, a little bit of water, and I'm going to pick up that pigment, and I'm going to add some of that darker pigment now just to the edges, but I really want it darker here. So I'm just going to, and yes, obviously I'm adding water now because I want it to look a little bit more watercolour-ish, if you know what I mean, rather than just blended. So just sort of, there we go. Nothing complicated at the moment. And I'm going to just want this edge darker. So I'm going to take a little bit of black soot. So let's take a little bit of black soot. Make sure we've got some water there. Add a little bit more of walnut stain. And let's just pick up that black soot with a little bit of the walnut stain, just so that that's a little bit darker, just along this edge. So I'm sort of picking up the black soot and mixing that with the walnut stain, just so that I've got that a little bit darker, just along this edge. And I'm not using too much water. I'm just using a little bit of that water and blending it out just until there's nothing on my brush. It's just a little bit darker on that edge. I'm then going to go to my vintage photo. Let's pick up the vintage photo. I'm just going to sort of blend the edges out a little bit. And again, there we go. And I'll just pick up what's on there now, and I'm just going to blend out a little bit more of that colour that I've got on my non-stick craft sheet. Okay. And I want to try and not to do too much masking, if that makes sense. So I want another one up here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just wing it without a mask. If you want to put a mask over there, by all means do that. What I'm going to do is just take the ink that's on the stencil already and just come around up to where it touches the other one. It means I don't have to mask it off. Another easy way to do things. Just don't have to mask that then. I'm then going to take the walnut stain. So let's take the walnut stain. Then I'm going to take a little bit of black soot, just to mix that with it, just so that I've got a little bit of a darker edge. Move that out of the way a little bit, so pick that up. And I'm going to mix a little bit of the black with that black soot. Take a little bit of the moisture off, because you've got your kitchen roll and that's sort of your best friend. And if you've got a little bit of a brush, no, if you've got a brush that's got that point on it, that's really your friend. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more black, just so that this edge here is a little bit darker. So I'm picking up that black and I'm going to go around with the black soot, just so that that edge is a little bit darker with the black soot. I'll rinse that and then I'll come to the walnut stain. We'll just come to the walnut stain and we'll just blend our walnut stain into our black. Let's take a little bit more water. And let's just blend this. So you can see it doesn't really matter that I've got those marks on that page. It really doesn't matter at all. So I'm going to come in with a little bit more of the black here, because I really want that edge to be a little bit darker. Let's bring it dark around here. And the only thing I'm doing is having a little bit of fun. So I'm then going to come to the walnut stain, and let's add a little bit more of that pigment on there, just so that we've got that rich pigment. Just dab a little bit of the moisture off there, and then we can come in and just add a little bit. Let's come back again. And every time you can come to your water and just blend that out. But you can see I want it a little bit darker here. So let's pick up that dark pigment and add that darkness here. Now what I'm going to show you is, let's just dry this. And then I'm just going to show you something. So let's just give this a dry. Now, can you see how much darker this is compared to that? Because we did the blending first. So what I'm trying to show you here is there's a reason that I do certain things. So you saw me blend the inks through that, and you can see the difference in depth. So what I'm going to do is come back, trying to find the angle that I had it in the first place, but these are the things I have to do. So where is it? Sort of there-ish. So I'm then going to do what I did in the first place. But if I hadn't have done what I've just done, I couldn't show you the difference. So that's walnut stain, and it's got the wrong lid on. So vintage photo. So I'm going to take the walnut stain, which is nice and dark, and now I'm going to blend this dark colour in, and you'll see how much more depth you get just by blending some colour first, just with your blending brushes. Obviously, if you're a bit worried, then use your mask. I'm using a little brush, so it's much more simplified because I'm using one of my smaller blending brushes. What I'm going to show you now, look at the depth in that. Just because I've blended more concentrated ink on there. So let's move this out of the way. I'm just going to take the water then, grab my kitchen roll, and let's just bleach out a little bit. Just so we've got a little bit, even though that water's tinted, it just makes it a little bit lighter. Okay. So we can take our brush again, and you can still just make it a little bit lighter, so you've automatically got a light area to make it easy for yourself. And then I'm just going to just touch here, just so that it's lightly shaded just in there, and just coming around here, just so that that's lightly shaded. And what we're doing is we're just enjoying ourselves. No pressure. In our journal, doesn't matter how many mistakes we make, we're just having some fun. So at the moment, I've got those 2 acorns on there. Again, you've also got this ink you can use on another card. Let's just... And then what you do is you think, where did I put the actual acorn itself? Oh, dear me. Now you saw me put the acorn down, and I showed you the acorn. Okay, what did you do with the acorn? Put it on there. I love it. I just love it, honestly. And you're probably all staring there and saying, I can see it, I can see it. I can't. Come on. There it is, under all the packaging. Oh, idiot. Right. So I'm going to take the actual acorn cut out, like so. And then I'm going to take, now, do we have, let's grab a little bit of a wipe. Don't put your packaging on top of your stencils, because then you spend half your life looking for them. So now I want another brush. Have I got a smaller one? I should have somewhere. Blacks and browns. I've got a new brush. There we go. I haven't used. So now I can use my, I've even got a smaller blending brush than that. But of course I can't actually see one. do. But I have actually got a finer one in the packs, which would be even better. So what I'm going to do then, I'm going to take the black soot. I'm taking a little bit of the black soot, like so. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of the black soot just on here. I'm then going to come back with the brown that's on here using the walnut stain, and I'm going to blend a little bit of walnut stain. Okie dokie, let's move that, there we go. Then I'm going to come to this one. I do love having just a little play for no reason, just because I enjoy being creative. And plus I love sharing. So let's just, there we go. So we've got our sort of mark then. Let's give this cut out a little bit of a wipe and see if we can lose it again within 4.5 seconds. Because at least I can make you feel normal when you know that I lose things every 2.5 seconds. So let's just put the right lids, walnut stain, black soot. I'm then going to take my vintage photo. Take the vintage photo and let's add a little bit of water to this and some clean water there. And we'll just pick up the water initially and we'll just add this just around. And can you see, I'm not being careful. I'm just adding that randomly, well, around the acorns. So just add that round those acorns. Then I'm going to pick up that pigment and then I'm just going to add some of that pigment just around. See, nothing technical, very, very simple. Just so that your background isn't quite so harsh. So I've just got the tinted water there. Doesn't matter if you touch your acorn. There we go. So you've just got that tinted bit of colour. So let's pick this up and then I'm just going to use a little bit of water and just soften the edges. And because this is 350 GSM in the book, it just takes that rather nicely. And I'm just going to leave that so that it's wet, so that everything is just soft. It's not sort of overworked. It's just nice and soft. So let's just... Now, if you look at these acorns, you can see at the top, there's lots of texture and bumps on there. They're not perfectly, you know, they're not perfect points like we sometimes see. They're just lumps. They're just beautiful. So you can add some texture to your acorn top if you wish. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to take walnut stain. So let's take walnut stain and I'm going to use the same brush. And what I can do is I can just sort of just add a little bit of texture. You don't have to be somebody that, you know, can draw. You can just, if I hold this up, look, it's just lumps. Can you see there? I've just pulled that off now. But so you can see there. Let's move that there. But just to give a little bit of texture, you know, we don't have to be trained artists just to get a lovely effect just to our page. And all I'm doing is using the same walnut stain just to give the idea that there's some markings on the top of there. Now, I'm no artist, but what I do like to do is show some simple methods that maybe you will be happy with. So we're just adding these so it's a little bit softer markings. We will just sort of add some pencil as well. So I'm just adding the markings just so that you can sort of differentiate the top of the acorn from the bottom, and so that it has that perception that it's textural. So I'm just picking up that walnut stain and just giving the impression that that is, you know, it's got some texture to it. I've not even added any more water. I've just used the walnut stain to give that impression that it is textural. So let's, now she says, I'm then going to use, I'm trying to not use a mask so that I can show you that it doesn't always have to be overly complicated. I'm going to take my bubble stamp, TE34. And you know, it's got the perfect sentiment on TE34. It says, being creative is a way of life. It is for me. It's got the perfect sentiment on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bubbles and I'm going to just take it freehand. Now, let's grab some copier paper. Oh, I'm just enjoying myself. I've also got an offer on workshops at the moment as well. If you use the code workshop SEP, all in capitals, workshop and then SEP, you can get 20% off your workshops. Now, what are you doing, Tracy? So I'm just, let's, I know what to do. Bear with me. I don't want to sort of create a full mask. I want to keep it simple. So let's just, where's the blending brush? Just get that blending brush there. And let's just cut that curvature out. That'll do. Let's bring this back in. We can just sort of ish. There we go. That's it's not even at the same angle, but it's probably more there. That's it. So then I'm going to take, let's take a permanent ink pad. So I'm going to take Portobello. So I'm going to take Portobello and I'm going to ink some of the stamp. Now what this is going to be is sort of my grounding. So I'm going to add a little bit of grounding to my design. You know that sometimes I add shading with the Distress Oxides or with an Inktense pencil, but I'm just giving it a little bit more grounding, as if it's just fallen onto the floor. I can just fill in areas if you've missed any. There we go. So you can bring, let's bring it. Oh, I'm such a nuisance. Let's just, so I'm using sort of first, second, third generation there. So it's just, let's add a little bit more. It's just so that it appears to be lying on something. That's the whole point. So let's just add a little bit more there, and maybe, do you like how I just can't stop? That's better. So I've got that grounding. Let's place that on the stamp set because then I know where it is, she says jokingly. So now I've got some grounding to my acorns, which is just lovely. I'm then going to take the walnut stain that I now frantically keep looking for. And what I know now is that that isn't going to move because it's permanent. But what I am going to do is I'm just going to give it a little dry, just so that I don't smudge or anything. I'm then going to take my round brush again with that walnut stain, which you can see is still on the brush. Kitchen towel is my friend because it takes off that extra moisture. And then I can just bring in a little bit more darkness just to the grounding area, just so it's a little bit darker. I'm just using that tinted water. You can see I almost sort of scratch that brush just so that I'm not using too much of anything. There we go. And whilst I've still got that brush that's slightly wet and my card is wet, I'm going to come in with my Inktense pencil. Let's come in with that Inktense pencil. Let's just add a little bit more of that shading. And I've got moisture on there on my brush, so I don't have to worry too much. Maybe a little bit more water, but look at that, just a little drop, just to give it a little bit more definition. I keep saying just a little bit more water, and then I grab a little bit more water. I probably may add a little bit more dark. I need to learn to stop faffing, but it's never going to happen. There you go. So you've got your basis of your design. And what I can see instantly is we need it a little bit darker here, just to give that a little bit more definition. Just to blend that out a little bit. I'm just softening that with a sort of barely wet brush. There we go. So we've got sort of our basis of the acorns. It look lovely. So I just love having a play. So I was just going to see what it looks like with. So I've got my seed head stamp here, and I like to use the acetate. So let's bring in that acetate. And at last I can use this because I've restocked. And it's going to take me forever to put that back. So let's take my seed head. Don't pull that now. When it gets like that, come on Tracy, when it gets to that stage, just gently peel it away. Don't yank at that. So what I'm going to see now is take my acetate, and because I've got the camera, I can look through the camera and I can play with my compositions. Yes, I love that. So I can play with the compositions a little bit. But of course, I've got lumps and bumps under there. That's not very firm at all. And Tracy then frantically looks for her book. So what I'm going to do is put my book underneath there because I've got lumps and bumps on that page. So that's now solid. So I just keep an old diary. I'm then going to take my acrylic block. Should be able to get away with. Let's just take a bigger one just in case. No, we do not want it bent, Tracy. I want it straight. So I'm then going to use Portobello ink. So I'm going to take the Portobello ink. Lots of tapping. I would rather have lots of ink on there than rush. just so then I can make sure I get that good impression. But what you can see what I've done now. So let's just wipe the bottom of there, because I don't want it. I'm trying to show you don't always have to mask. Obviously, if you mask everything off, you've got that security blanket. But I'm trying to show beginners as well how they can do things if they're a little bit daunted by cutting masks out, etc, etc. So let's just, now I've got moisture on that page. I didn't dry it because I said to you I wanted it to be soft, and with leaving that moisture on there, it just meant that this kept sort of wicking out a little bit. So I'm just giving this a little bit of time. I've used that Portobello ink, so let's just give that a little bit of time. It doesn't matter so much about the stem, because you can draw a bit of a stem in if you've missed a bit, so that doesn't matter too much at all. But look how long I give that ink. It's more about giving it time. So let's grab, she says, can't pick it up. Let's grab a brown pencil. So I'm just going to grab a brown pencil, and I can just bring that just down there. Look, just done. So you can bring that down there a little bit. So I'm going to use my Sepia PC948. You do not have to use a pencil if you don't wish. And I'm probably going to add another one, so just bear with me, because I do want one shorter, because that is just me all over. So what I'm going to do is just get rid of the stem at the moment. Just give that a wipe. How short do I want it? Around about there-ish. So I'm taking that Portobello, and I'll probably just ink a bit of the stem, because I can draw that in. Okay. Don't ink over your project like I'm doing, because that's a bit iffy, if I'm honest. Let's leave that there. So I'm just having fun with my stamps, just playing and enjoying myself, which is the whole point. Again, the stem is not so important. Just give this area a little bit of time just to make that impression on the surface there, particularly if, like me, you've added all that water. We're just done with that. So we'll just come in. Oh, I've done all right with that. So let's just add a little bit of, there we go. So I've got my 2 poppy seed heads, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my pencil, just so that you can definitely see that this is the edge. Let's just give this a dry a little bit more, because this, I don't know why I've got the book underneath now, because this page is quite wet. So what I'm going to do now is just come in with my Sepia PC948. You do not have to do the pencil work if you don't wish. So I'm just coming in with a little bit more definition with my pencil, and I just want this area is going to be a little bit darker, so I'm just coming in with a little bit of that pencil, just to give a little bit of darkness. Not much, just a little bit of that pencil. And you want this so that that is definitely the edge of that one. Okay, let's bring in a little bit of definition to this one as well. but I'm not really pressing very hard. I'm just giving it a little bit more definition. Now what I do want to do is sort of give the impression there's a little few more markings just on here. Now you're not doing perfect circles, you're dotting. You're dotting big dots, small dots, thin dots, fat dots, doesn't matter. You're just giving it some markings just to differentiate the top of there. So let's grab our little acorn, and we've got the top of the acorn, and you can see it's just dotted, so it's quite nice. And also it's probably got a few little lines. You can add lines if you wish, or the appearance, or you can just use water to bring in a few lines. It's entirely up to you, but I'm not going to bother too much about the lines. It's just here that I want to add that little bit of dotting. So just grab a little bit of that dotting and make sure it's a little bit darker shaded under here, and then continue with your little bit of dotting. And this dotting with the pencil is totally different than the dotting with the oxides, but the two together give that dimension. They give wonderful depth and dimension to your design. And because there was moisture in the top, some of them move, so it makes it look a little bit more natural. It does for me anyway. And your journal is where you play. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm just adding a little bit more shading under there, just so it's a little bit darker. And then I'm going to bring my pencils in. Sorry if I'm bending my head in the camera, because I can't leave these on the table because there isn't enough room. So let's grab some more browns. So, and then I want something that's a bit like a putty colour. Have I got a putty colour? I'm sure there's something called putty, you know. Oh, there you go, putty beige. Ha. So I'm going to come in then with burnt ochre, PC 943, just a lighter brown, and you're just going to come in very lightly. And what you're doing is you're just adding as if it appears that when you look at it, there's sort of different shades of the brown, just so that it's not so one-dimensional. It's got sort of touches and a little bit of a warm glow to that, just so that it looks like there's a sort of a warm glow to your acorn. So it's not really about sort of blending precisely, it's just giving a little bit of a warm glow with a warm brown, just to give that appearance of that warmer colour. And can you see where my hand is at? I'm not really pressing hard. You can even sort of, if you come in with this lighter colour, again, you're going to give dimension to your pieces. Now, if you're looking for a piece that takes 5 minutes, this isn't one of them. If you're looking for crafts that take 5 minutes, that's not my channel, because I go into great depth about how I achieve things and what brings me joy. So let's just sort of pretend there's some markings on that, because they're all lumpy and bumpy and it's not perfect. So I'm just coming in with a little bit of that warmer brown, and maybe it's just got a warmer glow to it. Oh, I'm just dumping the pencil here just so that you can see. It's just got that warmth to it for me. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more of that darker area. There we let's come in with a few more little dots. Honestly, I could do this forever. I'm then going to come in with this putty colour, and I'm just going to add a little bit of a lighter colour, that putty colour, just so there's a little bit of lightness. But it's not pure white, it's got that putty colour just added, just to give it a little bit of lightness. You can even sort of, there we go. So it's just got a little bit of lightness on there. I'm then going to colour my poppy seed heads, and I'm going to use the same colours. So we're using sepia. So I'm going to take that sepia, and I'm going to add that sepia just down the dark lines here. Just add that down the dark lines. So I'm not being too regimented about it. So let's just, and then we'll just add a little bit down the stem, just to make that a little bit darker. There we go. So just adding a little bit of this sepia, just to my poppy seed head. I'm then going to take that warm brown again. That it's not warm brown, it's burnt ochre, but you know what I mean. So the burnt ochre, PC 943, and I'm going to come in with a little bit of that colour as well. And I'm just, what I'm doing is I'm just getting an idea for what I like. So I'm going to add a little bit of the darkness here as well. So just coming back with that darker pencil. So just coming in, and once I've laid down the colour, I get a better feel. I'm then going to use that putty colour, which is PC 1083. And that's where I'm just going to add that sort of in the middle, that putty colour. I've got no blend, no nothing at the moment. I've just laid down the colour because at the moment, just to see where I'm going. I don't really want to add too much colour to the top. So I'm going to come back then, and I'm going to come back with that dark colour, which is the sepia 948. I won't repeat them again after I've said that. I repeat the colour because sometimes if I'm following along from a video, trust me, if I can forget what the colour is when I'm actually using it, I can forget it when I'm watching a video. So I'm just putting this dark sepia just on here. Did we put some on there? Then I'm coming with the burnt ochre 943. And just coming in, and now I'm giving it a little bit more blend. And this ochre's got a beautiful warmth to it. So that really brings a nice warm feel to our design. Let's bring this down the stems. So it brings a nice warm feel to that. And then my lightest colour, I blend both colours with that putty colour, which is 1083 putty beige. And I have to say I do love that colour, putty beige. Just to, and for this, I think you don't have to be quite so precise. You can be a little bit more relaxed with the poppy seed head. But I just love that. We can add some touches of white. We can give that time to just rest a little. So what I'm going to do, where have you gone? The stamp set. Don't have too many stamp sets out at once. I've now got my little acorns and my little birds. So I'm going to use TE44. And this is why I create all these stamps, because they do work beautifully together. And I don't just say that. I purposely design them so they do all work together. So let's take our little bird, and then I can add my little bird onto here. So again, I need that book underneath because I've got lumps and bumps under there. You can see I've got my oh dear, I've forgotten. What's it called? A butylon on that page, and it's cut out. So I'm just going to bring that in. Now I need my black ink pad, and this is where Tracy then gets to use and pick up the wrong ink pads all the time. So I'm using my Nocturne ink. There we go. So let's take that Nocturne ink, make sure I've got that solid, and I'm going to add my little bird standing on the acorn. But again, even though I'm using that black ink, I don't lift really quickly. So I want the other bird now that faces the other way. And you can tell I'm enjoying myself. I'm enjoying adding sort of finishing touches, and oh, I love it. So I'm going to take that black ink once again. Now this is his little friend. And his little friend, where are you going to sit? He's going to sit here on the other acorn because they're having a little chat together. And you can see I'm not rushing that. There we go. So we've got our little birds on there. And what I'm going to do, because obviously we've got the stem on there and I've not masked that off. I'm not doing masking. And I'm going to come in and just, because I'm trying to show you how you can get around not masking if you're just learning the basics. You know, masking, you know, is a little bit more advanced, but if you didn't want to mask, we've done that. Now I've just put that ink on there. So then let's take you here. Then I'm going to take the other bird back again, because I've got 2, 4, 6 elements, and I'm going to make it so I've got odd elements on there. And don't scrimp with the ink on your little bird. And I'm going to have, and I've moved the book again. I'm going to have the other little bird on the ground here, just to give some perspective. There we go. Just place that back. And I've just had great fun doing this, you see. Now he wants grounding a little bit because we don't want the poor little thing floating in midair as if he's flapping his wings trying to land. Kitchen roll if you've got too much water. There we go. Just so that he is grounded. I then want some text. So if I go to, oh, I tell you what, let's at least put this stamp away. Oh no, I don't want to put that stamp away yet. Or do I? Because I was going to. No, I don't want to put that stamp away, just bear with me. So I'm going to have 60 million stamps out. If I go to TE45, it's got a text stamp here talking all about the garden. And that's just perfect. You can use whatever text stamps you've got. And I'm going to take it so that it's not regimented. I'm going to use it off the acrylic block. I'm going to use Portobello ink. And it talks all about the garden. So it's not going to spoil anything because it's going to be perfect. So I'm going to take a little bit of text. And let's add the text here. And then I've got a little bit of text on there. So I'm not sort of using it as a whole at the moment. I'm breaking it up into little elements until I decide I want to use the whole. Let's add the whole thing there. Doesn't matter if you haven't got perfect stamping, it's a background. Now what the stamping does is it pushes your acorns back a little bit. And the text makes it so that it's sort of part of the whole encompassing arrangement. So let's bring this in so that the florals are involved in the scene. So let's bring some of that text in there. So let's add a little bit there and a little bit here, just so that it's all encompassing. A little bit of text here, just to encompass all that scene. I'm using a permanent ink pad. Let's just bring a little bit of text there, a little bit there. And you can see I'm having far too much fun just adding little bits of text. Second generation you can have. Let's just add a little bit of text there, so it's all encompassing. And then I'll just tilt my stamp, curl my stamp a little bit, just so I've got little bits of that text now. Just so that, you know, I think I'm happy with that. So we can place that back, although Tracy doesn't know where she put the stamp. What do you do with the stamp, woman? Oh, you actually put it back. Wonders never cease. So let's just place this back on here. Or we won't place it back on there. Spot the stamp that's well used. There we go. So you can see I've got my sort of design there. Well, it's not sort of there, it's there. I just love it. So let's place our ink pads back. Now that was the black. My OCDs. Not that I've got OCD, but I do have it a bit, because I'm the kind of person that goes and checks the door 25 times. I've been planting bulbs today. I've actually planted 60 so far. I've got about another 160 to plant, but at least it'll look lovely in spring. So I'm going to take TE44 now, and I want to see if I want to add one of my little acorns. And it's lovely to see. Let's use your acetate, Tracy, what you're always telling people. Yep, I instantly know. So I'm taking one of the little acorns. There we go. I'm going to put that on a little acrylic block. And I'm going to ink that with, make sure, see, wrong ink, Nocturne. So I'm going to ink that with Nocturne ink, my black ink. And then, oh, look, my little birds there. Let me bring this book down. I'm going to, I could have put this first and then the bird, but that would be too easy. There we go. So if I'd have stamped the acorn first, it'd have made it much easier to stamp the bird afterwards. But I didn't do that. And that's all part of playing. Obviously, when you come to create it, you can stamp your little acorn first and then add your bird afterwards. Then what we want to do is, let's bring a little bit of shading to that. And if you're enjoying yourself, you end up with a desk full of stuff. Let's just add a little bit of shading, and you can dilute that a little bit with a bit of your water. There we go. And then we will, so we need our Posca pen, but we also, I'm going to take my Prisma white, and I'm just going to add a little bit of white now, just to make it a little bit whiter. Just my Prisma white. Maybe add a little bit of white just down here. But it's a little bit quite natural, the white is. Where's your Posca pen? Now you need to make sure your Posca pen is working, and I haven't got a piece of card. Let's just press it on there. I can't actually see. It's like I'm looking for something to draw on. There we go. That's fine. And then I can add my touches of white. So I want to add little bits of white just here. You can use your bleed proof white. Let's have a look how the bleed proof white will look. Let's take our brush and let's make sure that's clean, because you all know me by now and you know it's probably not clean, so you're used to it. So I'm going to pick up my bleed proof, just coat my brush with my bleed proof Dr. PH Martins. Make sure I've got plenty of pigment on there. And then if you've got a little bit of a point on your brush, you can come in and you can use your bleed proof. If you're finding that that Posca pen is picking up too much of the colour from the background, so you can just use your bleed proof. Tiny touch of water. Let's add a little bit of white there and here. Now, you know me by now. You know that I'm just enjoying myself. I'm just having a lovely time. Just adding, and you can see I'm very sort of carefree with those touches of white. Very carefree indeed, you know, not super duper precise. Very sort of, let's add some white down here. But it does sort of bring your projects to life, but I'm doing it in a more natural way rather than being too precise with it. Let's just, so I'm just adding layers of that bleed proof, just so that I've got areas of the white. Let's just add a little touch of white. So because it's that bleed proof, and you can see I've used the oxide, it's not going to take on that colour that's underneath, that brown. Look, I'm not being very precise, I'm being quite natural about it, but look at that pigment in there. So we could actually use this bleed proof white. Let's add a little bit more pigment to that. And then let's get, oh, crikey, let's get our fan brush. Let's clean the lid. Now we've just wiped that all over it. So let's grab our fan brush. Add a little bit more water to that. And then you can add splatters of white. Again, if it's not moving, let's bring in a little bit more pigment. I can worry about cleaning my brush afterwards. So there we go, a bit more. Just like I'll keep saying, oh, a bit more. So I can use this because it's bleed proof. But because I'm using the fan brush, it's giving me some gentle, just gentle splatters. Okay. And what I really do suggest you do is that you take those brushes, because they're covered in that white pigment, and just, if you haven't got time to go to the sink or your jar or whatever, just hold them into some wet tissue until you can get to clean them. I'm also going to add some Posca splatters because I'm afraid I'm addicted to them and I love them. So let's just, I just love my Posca splatters. That's me, that's who I am. There we go. I've not gone overboard. So then, if we come to TE44, again, I've now got those words and I've got the acorn word. So I can take the acorn, like so. And we'll stamp that in our black ink. Tracy reaches for the correct ink. And then you just need to decide where you want to put your stamping. I'm just going to go so that it stays within the cluster of the design. Where's the acorn word there? Just going to, let's remove that book. And then we'll just grab, we'll grab our, I know what you're thinking. She's done it again. Let's move them out of the way. There it is. It's getting so small. But it's been with me for so long. And I have got pencil extenders as well. Because my lovely friends bought me extenders. So you can see how much of that pigment is in there, of that white. There we go. Just going to blend that out. And then we've just got one more thing to do. Okie dokie. Quite enjoying myself. So that's our page all finished. And what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of white just to the birds, but I'm using my Prisma this time just so it's just a gentle touch of white on the bird, nothing too much. Then I'm going to come, what are you doing? Oh yeah, that is in there. I'm going to come, you know, with that dark brown pencil, the Sepia 948, I'm just going to sort of define a few sort of the rocks, just define a few of the rocks just so that you can see the ground's got a little bit of definition as well. So just defining some of those as well. And that is my page finished. And you know, I've had a blast. I've absolutely loved that. So I hope you enjoy creating that as well. And you'll give that a go. So love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.